I just feel when I tune into the heart, especially tuning into the heart while dancing, because it's just so much more potent, there's nothing but compassion there. And then compassion for self too, and that has for me sometimes been the hardest.
All right, so welcome to the Indigo Rising Podcast, where we'll be talking about healing, spirituality, and everything related to it. Today my guest is Erica Wood, and thank you so much for joining me, and I'll let you do a little bit your intro for who you are, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Well, I'm kind of having you. You're in my home. So during the day, I do leadership consulting, performance consulting around conscious leadership, emotional intelligence, and as a side gig, passion, love project, I offer conscious movement dance classes.
Awesome.
That's through the Path of Azul, which is what I'm probably going to talk mostly about.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I guess just to kind of get started, because we already talked a little bit about about healing and spirituality, and that healing and spirituality are very closely related. And you were telling me a little bit about your own healing journey and kind of how that's helped you. So I don't know if you'd like to just share a little bit how you got interested in healing and where that all kind of started for you.
Yeah. So my personal development passions began in 2002.
Okay.
When I did a program called the Landmark Forum, and that just kind of was the launching pad for everything thereafter. I've always loved dance, but the dance that I've done growing up was more choreography,
Gotcha.
steps, learning how to dance from the outside in, being informed of how to move. And it wasn't until I got really deep in my healing journey that I noticed, oh wow, like every time I'm upset, I dance in my apartment. Oh wow, like grieving the loss of my father, I danced more than I've ever danced in my entire life. Oh wow, that really helps. Like I'm just now realizing it's been like a saving grace for me. And in such a way that I got to the point where I'm like, wow, it's healed a lot of trauma and loss for me, and I feel like I have to give this away. Like I can't just keep this to myself. And then I discovered 5 Rhythms, and Gabrielle Roth is the mama of all conscious movement and conscious dance, and there's so many beautiful practices out there, but we got to give credit to Gabrielle Roth because she's the one that really brought conscious dance and conscious movement to our communities. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you've said you've always been interested in dancing, something you've always kind of done, but I'm interested a little bit what you just said about from the inside out instead of the outside in, because I think a lot of other things in our life we tend to go in that direction, like trying to bring the outside in instead of just expressing what's trying to naturally come out, right?
Yeah. So the conscious movement in general, they come from the premise that we're all dancers.
Okay.
Even if you're offbeat, you're dancing. And if you have a body and you can move, you can do conscious movement. So it is not about steps, and it's not about even looking good.
Okay.
But it is about discovering what way does my body need to move that feels good, and like tuning in and listening from a much deeper place.
Okay.
So one of the orientations of the Path of Azul is listening, and listening is our most primal connective sense. I mean, it's the first sense we had in utero. And now to listen through the body and discover listening to the body, like we have this somatic intelligence that's giving us information and giving us data, good data. Like, oh, this neck pain I'm having, wow, it's really killing me. What information does that have for me? And tune in and listen and listen. And that's kind of like where the messages start to pop up, and where you start to have these like blinks of awareness of like, oh wow, I'm still holding on to some anger about that interaction. That's what's being communicated to me. So it's listening from the inside, and then that informs the movement.
Okay.
Listening, breath, allowing for what's arising in non-judgment. So we come from a place of non-judgment. Whatever arises is what you're being shown. So it behooves us to look at what we're being shown and get curious. And then it's like opening to what else do I need to hear? And then moving toward, and then integrating after the dance class. Like, okay, it's time to have this conversation that I'm putting off. It's time to have this tough conversation I'm putting off, because that's what came up in the dance. So dancing from the inside out is really tuning in here, not being concerned about out there.
Got it.
It's not to say that people don't get self-conscious, like, oh God, I really want to let go, but I don't want people to look at me. And don't worry, like, the people are more concerned about you looking at them. Like, everybody's concerned about nobody looking at them. So you're totally in good company. So I've had to unlearn a lot of dance training in order to actually get deeper and deeper into accessing the healing.
Yeah.
My training has gotten in the way. Because I was like, oh, I know this. I can do. No. Tune in. Let go of your training. Unlearn. Get humble. Listen. And sometimes in conscious movement, like, the most healing and loving thing that you can do is just sway and close your eyes and meditate. Some people hop up and down and they scream. So it's not just a physiological, somatic access to healing, but it's a very verbal and vocal too. So we invite, we don't just allow, we invite, like, because it's a journey, and the dance journey takes you through a musical composition of a lot of different emotions. And that's kind of the design of the journey. It's, it accesses everything, soft, slow, to intense, to whatever needs to be felt.
So is it like a guided type of practice? Like, I'm almost imagining just picturing what you're talking about, that it's almost like a moving meditation in a way, right? That you're like inviting the energy to start to move, right?
Yes. It's not heavily facilitated, but it's facilitated subtly with very little words. So we might drop in with a particular orientation that we're concentrating on in the class. So if it's like, are you breathing? Are you holding your breath? You'd be surprised by, and I'll speak for myself, how often we hold our breath and we're not breathing from our diaphragm. We're breathing shallow, and it's causing all sorts of tension to arise. So it could just be dropping in, breathing. It could be dropping in and exploring different angles and different spirals and different, how does your body, like, really kind of just offering and inviting people to move more out, or to move more in, or to dance with themselves, or to dance with another and connect with them and mirror them. It's all an invitation. But you do what's authentic to you. And if you're not ready to dance with somebody, you might say, no thanks, I'm going to stay here. And again, it's a really beautiful and safe container to really explore, what does my body need right now? And frankly, sometimes the most healing thing to do is just have a blast and dance your butt off. Like, that is healing too. Like, getting silly and crazy and putting some electronic. I kind of like to tease a little electronic dance in there, because every once in a while we just need to, like, and go into complete chaos and release. And there's a fire that needs to be expressed. So it's also honoring the elements too, and wrapping in the elements. So at the crux of the Path of Azul, sorry, I'm getting a little tangential.
No, it's fine.
The crux of the Path of Azul is its heart. It's about accessing the intelligence of the heart. Yeah. We're always up here. Well, I'll speak for myself. I can only speak for myself. Here. Logic. Oh, well, I have to think. Even just preparing for this, like, I'm going to throw that away. Like, I don't need a notebook. Like, oh, I have to make sure I reference this book. And, I have to, like, I'm just telling on myself right now. Like, and the book, by the way, is Body Keeps the Score by Bessel Kolk. And he speaks to the importance of this type of work to heal trauma. Emotion is not meant to be stored in the body. Emotion is meant to be felt and released. There was this amazing TED Talk. Her name is Jill Bolte. I'll look up her name and so you can add it to the resources. But she wrote the book Stroke of Insight. She's a Harvard researcher and a neuroanatomist. Okay. And she mentioned something in the TED Talk around healing that's not released, healing that's not felt. It manifests in as dis-ease. Mm-hmm. And let me just go back to Bessel's work first, and then I can reference it back to what you were originally asking, mm-hmm. which was, okay, well, why the heart? Why spirituality? Why getting out of the head? It's not that the head doesn't serve a purpose, but it's not where truth with a capital T mm-hmm. lies. And I just find that movement gives me information that I just don't get in talk therapy. Mm-hmm. And the power of the movement is providing the space for you to come home here, home heart, home truth, and see, oh, okay, that's just sadness. Okay. So instead of numbing or resisting that sadness, I'm going to dance my sadness. If I was to express my sadness in dance, what would that dance look like? And every single person has a unique blueprint of what that looks like and awesome. Feels like. There's no right or wrong. Like, some people may be very slow and closed in. Some people may actually expand their body, and some people may get on the floor and dance being connected to the earth. So it's about giving permission to feel. Mm-hmm. And in the permission to feel, that is what Jill Bolte, the TED Talk, the Harvard researcher, found, is that when we actually feel these emotions without resistance, it takes 90 seconds for it to pass through the body. 90 seconds. 90 seconds. Do you see, I'm 90 seconds? I've been feeling this for 5 years. No, I've been feeling it for 5 years because I'm actually not feeling it. I'm recycling it, and I'm talking about it, and at times I'm repressing it, and then I'm recycling it, and I'm analyzing, and I'm interpreting, and that's not healing. Yeah. I mean, it serves a purpose too. Mm-hmm. It's great insights, but at the end of the day, you just need to feel it. Yeah. And okay, I'm just going to actually let myself feel the vulnerability of sadness and dance that. And for me and for many, it feels unbelievably liberating to just say, okay, here's my invisible permission slip to feel whatever's there authentically from the inside out. So that's what we mean by the inside out. You're listening, you're tuning in, what needs to be heard, and then how does my body want to mirror what that's communicating.
Amazing.
It's fun too, because you get to be really creative. You get to be really creative and move in whatever way feels good to you.
Awesome. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I'm you said a lot of cool things in there. Something that's just occurred, the way you were describing just how it just seems like it's bringing that innocence back, right? It's helping you to get back to that place of like how a lot of us romanticize our childhoods and stuff that happened a long time ago, because it's acting without so much thought, like you're saying, without having your head get in the way of I really just want to move, right? But what are people going to think of me? And I mean, I'm sure myself and many people it's a familiar thing that when I'm at home in my apartment, I'll gladly dance and move around, but then when I go out somewhere, I have to, then my head comes into a little bit. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I should be dancing here. I don't know if I should be dancing around these people. And it's a lot of that. Your body wants to. Mm-hmm. Your body's telling you. You can feel it. That there's that urge to just. You need to move, and it. Anytime I do, it's always so therapeutic.
Yeah.
And I know even just for 5 minutes in the morning, if I put a song I love on and just move around, just however it wants to come out, is always so. Every time I do it, I'm like, why don't I do this all the time? Because I think it always just gets you in such a good state. And you're saying like, and it allows whatever is trying to come up. And I think that's powerful.
Yeah, the Path of Azul and many other dance modalities, but I'll speak specifically about Path of Azul because that's what I'm trained in.
Okay.
It has a psycho-spiritual approach, so it's body awareness, and there's so many particles we can go down. There's so many roads we can go down, but the piece that I'll share for the purpose of this example is coming from, again, what does the heart have to say about the challenges I had with my father? Oh, well, he really, truly did the best he could. He was 20 when he had children. He was 20 when he had children. So what does the heart have to say? And I just feel when I tune into the heart, especially tuning into the heart while dancing, because it's just so much more potent, there's nothing but compassion there. And then compassion for self, too. And that has, for me, sometimes been the hardest. It's like, whew, like, okay, forgiving myself for any time where I was righteous. I was really right, though. I was really right. Yeah, but like you're killing yourself. And there's like cortisol, adrenaline overload in your body right now and inflammation. How's that working for you? And your jaw is killing you and your TMJ is getting activated and your neck is killing you. But I got it. You're right. We got it. Good. Do you want a trophy? So it's humbling. It's a really humbling practice. And for me, the heart of the Path of Azul is coming from honesty, kindness, compassion, self-responsibility, like personal responsibility, and providing that gift to ourselves. And obviously, I guess that's the inside-out aspect again. It's like, when I provide compassion for myself, I am so much more compassionate to other people. And when I'm compassionate to other people, I'm like, oh, I've messed up like that. Like there's just it's just access to empathy and really getting that everybody's really doing the best they can with the knowledge and the information and the awareness that they have at the time.
I stand by that for sure.
We're all doing our best. And it also doesn't serve me. If I'm about empowering women through their bodies, judging myself, and I'm like preaching, I'm about empowering women through the movement of their bodies, yeah, that's not authentic. So it would behoove me to really get true here and accept who I am and allow for my past to have been my past and know that I'm already forgiven. I'm just the one that's taking a long time to forgive me. I've been forgiven. Yeah, so I kind of answered your question in 5 different ways.
That's fine. No, that's great that you're getting into some really interesting stuff, because I think that really that what you're talking about and reaching into is that, like, at our essence, that we are all compassionate people, and like you're saying, the most important part of that is the compassion towards ourselves and the judgment towards ourselves that a lot of us hold on to, because, like you said, what's in the past is in the past, and it's, we think that it's for other people, but it really, I think even our judgment towards other people always comes right back to us. It always comes back to us.
Always. Judge not lest ye be judged. Like, whoever hasn't sinned, throw the first stone, right? I mean, but again, humbled and acknowledging, like, it's like the Ho'oponopono prayer, like, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. I literally sang that to an ex-boyfriend. He and I sang that to each other as we were wrapping up our relationship. And it was just a really, really beautiful, powerful moment. Like, I messed up. I didn't show up my best. I could say I could have done better, but could I? I wasn't aware at that time of that. We're aware when we're aware. Yeah. And we're not supposed to be perfect here. And that's actually so exciting.
For sure.
It's like, we don't have to be perfect.
It's such a relief.
It's such a relief. That's such a relief. And that's something I've discovered in the dance too, is like, there's no such thing.
No such thing. And there's so much stress we put on ourselves trying to be, because me, I've called myself, I finally stopped calling myself a perfectionist, but for me, especially with video work and being able to go back and to like perfect every little piece of everything, that I can watch a video back and I messed, and just hundreds of drafts of something that I found that carried over into my life, that carried over into that I'm trying to be a perfectionist in things that never wanted to be perfect. They were just trying to be the natural organic experience it wanted to be. But I was really so tied to this unrealistic expectation of what is supposed to be happening in relationships, right? And just in normal, everyday fun, going out and having a nice day, and instead of going back and judging it, just realizing it was a nice day. And if something happened that I wasn't too excited about, there's always something to learn from. And that's something I've been becoming more and more aware of lately, is that you're saying that in not being perfect and realizing that it's such a relief, but also that you learn so much more, I feel like, in the mistakes. Like, what if you just do everything exactly the way you imagined?
So much more simple.
So much simple.
So I'm like, hey, that was out of line. I'm sorry I said that. That actually didn't work. Like, to just own that. And then people really appreciate it when you just own your piece. They're like, oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah. It's kind of weird. I wasn't expecting you to, it's just like, just cuts through the excess fat. We're all like, and so what? People judge. Yeah. But like, at the end of the day, given the tiny bit of information that makes up our personal purview of this existence, is the judgment really about me anyway? Like, I mean, it has a lot more to do with you, for right? Sure. The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz is another great book.
I haven't read it. I've heard, it's been recommended to me.
That's a good one to just reread and reread and reread and reread. He speaks, one of the agreements is don't take anything personally. It's not personal. It is not personal. And the times when I was a jerk, it actually wasn't personal to that person. Even when I was really making it about that person, it was about me. Yeah.
It just always comes back.
What's this boomerang effect here? Well, and the second I judge, like the second I'm judging, it hurts. It like physiologically hurts. Like
so much
my
more
body,
energy.
It's so much energy, and the physiological loop that I'm getting is like, yeah, this ain't working, and I'm feeling tension, and I feel heart palpitations, and I feel sick to my stomach. I have this knot in my stomach now, and it's because that's not authentic. That's not real. Yeah. That's not even who they are. There's something to get clear. So then I just like rock out in my living room and I dance. That's like, I'm telling you, and dancing outside is beautiful. I love dancing in the trees. Like, sometimes I just gotta journal a tiny bit and then turn on music and dance, and then I'm like, I just get these insights. Yeah. Malcolm Gladwell talked about this in his book Blink, where he said, it's those like sudden flashes of insight where like suddenly you see with complete clarity what was missing in that situation. And I'm like, got it. Like, I'm gonna write that down. Some people call it a download, some people call it whatever you want to call it. It's like we're being guided and supported, and information's coming in.
Absolutely. I think what you're getting into a little bit, just that what you're talking about, and just getting in touch with just that guidance, that voice, because I think that something as simple as dance, which the way you're describing what is actually happening here is it's a spiritual practice. Yes. that you're tapping into this, and part of the reason why I started this podcast series is just because I started in my own life just realizing that every time that I would find a little piece of healing for something, I would heal some part of me, that it was just always just so intertwined with this spiritual piece, that there's just that in that moment when you have that healing moment, that in that, you're saying in that moment when it's just like boom, that knowing in that moment that it's just something that you can't ever describe in words, and it's just when you have that moment, it's just such a powerful, like, transcendent experience that it just again, it just begs the question that there's just so much more. There's just so much more going on. There's so much more guidance always. And I think that the mind likes to get in the way of, like, we seem to both be intellectual people that like to just intellectualize how it works and all the processes of just getting into that place. But it's really so simple. right? That it really just, the most simple things really tend to have the most profound moments in my life, or really the time where I just let it all go, right? And just say, you know what, I'm done in this moment. And in that moment, the surrender in that moment will just usually lead to just such profound wisdom that I wasn't even aware that was just trying to come through, that I was blocking because I was trying to figure it all out and trying to have the how and the why and the but what about on all that chatter that was just in the way. And the second I could just have some peace for a second to get past that, it's just always, the guidance is always there.
Yeah.
And I just it's not really a question. I'm just sharing, just basically what you're saying is just,
no, the
it's just powerful.
But the piece you're speaking to about surrender, there's a journey getting to surrender, and every day is different and every moment's different.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's simple, but it's like not easy.
For sure.
It's a journey. And once you get to surrender, it's like, oh, I'm trying to force an outcome. Oh, I think I've got the answers. There's a quote in A Course in Miracles that says, if you're feeling anxious, you're trusting too much in your own strength and not enough in God's. You're relying too much on your own strength. That's why you're anxious. Oh, I need that tattooed on my forehead. I'm not even kidding. I need it tattooed on my forehead. Like, anxiety equals not trusting. Why can't I just remember that, like, quicker and quicker and quicker? Sometimes there's a delay.
That's powerful, because what you're saying is, that's something that I think that I've struggled with, and I think a lot of people do, is when you have that moment, you're like, oh, that's right. And then you wake up the next day, something catches you by surprise, a week or two goes by, and all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, and something else will happen.
I forgot.
I forgot again. It's just been a month or two, and I forgot all about it, you know? And I think, but it's always so funny and so it's so beautiful, though, that we get to go down that, and just to realize from another perspective again. It's just another perspective, and it's just, I feel like the more you just have fun with it, the more you can just try to be a little more playful with the whole thing. I think that it gets, not saying that it ever is easy or gets easier, but it also can. You know, we can also not be so hard on ourselves. And I think
it can. We can grow. My mentor, Amara Pagano, I should have mentioned her from the very beginning. She's the creator of the Path of Azul. Okay. You know, she this is her baby. And she says, you know, we can grow through pain, and and not or like, and we can also grow through joy, and through love, and through grace, and through ease, and through fun, and through joy. Like, it doesn't all have to be this, like, I'm on the, and sometimes it might be like, I've had some wonkers of dance classes where I was on the floor like, you know, this existence can be really painful, dealing with loss and such, but once you can remember, and that's like, it's like the game isn't like remembering 100% of the time. I don't think that's realistic, but I think it's how quickly can I come back once I've strayed and I'm going off into fear land and anxiety in a downward spiral. How much quicker can I listen and tune into my physiology that's saying, Mayday, Mayday, like, we don't need this much adrenaline and cortisol. You're just sitting in front of a computer. Like, a saber-toothed tiger is not trying to eat you right now. That was just an email. Like, how much quicker. That's the game. It's like, can I get back in the bat of an eyelash? Like, I saw this interview with the Dalai Lama, and the interviewer asked him, like, Your Holiness, do you ever get angry? And the Dalai Lama started cracking up, and he's like, of course I do. I'm human. And for me watching that, I was like, he gets angry? Oh, he's human. And he has space for it, and he recovers quickly. It's like, not that we fall off. It's like, okay, well, let's get back on from a place of, like, Amara Pagano with the Path of Azul is all about, like, just act as a scientist. It's just observe it. That's information. It took us 2 hours to recover. let's up the ante a little bit. You're not wrong. You're totally cool. 2 hours is a lot better than 5 years. So they're like progress. We're making progress, which is, gratifying unto itself.
Yes. Yeah. Something you were saying earlier about, like the emotions are meant to be felt.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something I've actually talked about in, my background. So the documentary that I just made, is about emotional stress. So I grew up with neuroemotional technique, and the movie's about that. And what it helped me to realize from the age of 10. So I'm again, very lucky as a 10-year-old having some awareness of my emotional reality, which, I mean, at the time it was like, my thoughts are affecting my life. So when I would have some sort of thoughts and I would realize I was like thinking bad things or negative things, I was lucky to have that awareness to kind of point and be, okay, so this is something that's coming up that's not actually, I mean, at the time I didn't really realize that this isn't me. This is a more recent thing, realizing that like, I'm not my emotions, I'm not my thoughts. But I feel like having that awareness has allowed, it always gave me an alternate perspective just on who and what we are and like what's actually trying to come through. And like you said, that it gets faster and faster. You get quicker at it. In the beginning, I struggled for many more years. Like you said, it doesn't have to be for years for us to kind of bounce back for it. But I think that having that was almost allowing me to get into a spiritual place at a young age without having a name for it. And I remember at an early point in my life being intimidated by spirituality, being scared by spirituality. Mm-hmm. And I think that what I'm hoping to do with these conversations is to kind of make it less scary. Because I think that a lot of us are stumbling upon these things and having some emotional awareness. And so many more people now are starting to meditate just because they hear I can be less stressed out at my job, right? So it's like, let me sit still for 10 minutes in the day and just center myself. And I just think that I had a question here, but just, I think that just from your perspective, I think what you're touching into again is just that spirituality isn't this big scary thing, that just by dancing, just by sitting down, just by having a good conversation with someone, being present with a friend or a family member, that you're actually accessing an element of spirituality that you may not be aware that you are, right?
Right. There's something that you made me think of. Eckhart Tolle talks about whatever your religion is, like it's just a sign. It's like it's a word. Yeah. It's like whatever you want to call God. For some people, it's Goddess. For some people, it's Mama Gaia, Mother Earth, Spirit, Jesus. It's but the truth and all of, I mean, even I am friends with some atheists who are incredibly spiritual.
My wife has said this before.
They don't say, but it's not like we talk about that, but they're so ethical and they have such integrity and they're so loving that, like, that is embodying spirit, in my opinion. Yeah. I don't care what you say you are. I'm getting chills as I'm saying truth chills. Going back to the somatic intelligence. But whatever spirit is, it's love. Like it's love.
It is.
And I've been mad at God, and I'll call it God. That's the word that I use. And sometimes I use goddess. I'm really inspired by Greek mythology and goddesses, specifically Athena, because she is amazing. She's all about wisdom and strategy and war, and she's amazing. Just love Athena. But I feel like everything can be held, including your anger towards this. Like why did I get this lottery ticket? Why was I born into my family at this time with abundance? Yeah. Why was I, like, how did I win this gene pool? Like, what? So, to whom much is given, much is expected, right? Like, I want to be used up. And if I'm the one that got this lottery ticket, why was I not born in Syria? Why was I not born in the Middle East? So, yeah, I'm here to share spirituality, and you can call it whatever you want, and you can call it nothing at all, but let's dance together and embody it and feel it, because that's spirit. And my experience of spirit it moves through me in dance. It's telling me. That's also like the inside out. It's like I feel plugged in. I feel like I'm plugging in and I'm recharging my battery. Like I can dance for 2 hours and feel revitalized. Amara Pagano, she has these retreats. Like some of them are 6 days, a lot of dancing every day. And by the end, somehow we're still dancing. Like we're still dancing with massage therapists on site. But we're still dancing because it's just this endless supply of
flow.
Flow. Oh, you just mentioned a great piece, Luke. So Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, he's a Hungarian psychologist, and he's really deemed for discovering flow and having all this research on flow. And I feel like flow is locked into timelessness. There's no space, there's no time, there's actually no me. When I am dancing raw and I'm a pure channel, I'm not even there. Like it's just something flowing through my physiology that's not me, and it's giving me a lot of life force. Like thinking about Luke Skywalker, I feel like sorry, I love Star Wars. I feel like it's life force. I feel like it's like bing, and now I feel like now I can go about my day. It
is such a funny thing when you really think about that place, how you can, when you're connected into that flow and you just have the energy moving there's no energy blockages and the energy is just naturally flowing. You don't. It's just you're so light, and it's just it's endless. And I think what's an interesting piece about that is that it's always there. It is. It's only the ego thinks that we could ever be disconnected from God or disconnected from the universe, or not be who we like, to not be in this moment. That like we are not this moment. Like only humans could be so delude ourselves that deep to think that we are not this moment. That we are not always connected to everything.
Right.
And I think I think stuff like this is really helping people to just get your mind out of the way for a second and just feel into it. And I think when you can feel into any kind of anything you're doing, you're going to feel lighter, because you're going to be in that state of joy, right? And you're going to be in that state of just allowing the energy to flow. And I think that's just, we all have things in our life that we can all think of a moment. Like what's a moment when you remember that everything was perfect? And I found that when people describe that we focus too much on the circumstances, right? Like, oh, when I was a kid, I was out with my grandparents and they got me donuts and we were walking through the park and everything. It was so great because I was eating donuts and I was in the park. Like, no, you were just in the moment, right? You were tapped in and you were fully present, allowing that energy to come through. And I found that the only difference between that circumstance and now is that I was just allowing myself, right? I was allowing myself to be present, allowing myself to be just receptive to that energy. And I think that it's just a powerful truth that you're reaching into.
Yeah. Mindfulness practices in general are making their way into business. They're already happening. Yeah. There are so many mindfulness programs. And I just did a program called Search Inside Yourself, Leadership Institute. Chade-Meng Tan wrote a book called Search Inside Yourself. It's a program they created at Google to bring emotional intelligence and brain science and mindfulness to leaders. Cool. And wouldn't you know, that has a massive impact. Wouldn't you know? In terms of better impulse control. I mean, there's so much brain science behind what we're talking about, too. There's a lot. There's so much to speak about.
And they're doing more and more right now, for sure.
They're doing more and more. But going back to your point earlier that I wanted to underscore around, like, and they've done a study on this around, people who are distracted and not present to where they are actually are 40% less likely to experience happiness in their lives. So they're finding, like, okay, well, the anxiety of when I'm at work is that I can't be with my family, I can't be home. But when you're home, you're like, oh my God, I got to get back to work and I have to answer that email. It's like we're always somewhere else or to the next step. I won't say we, but I'll say me.
Me too.
I don't want to speak for everybody because some people really mastered this stuff. But I do notice that when I'm too much up here, it's really hot. It's really hot, and my physio, I can feel aches and pains. For sure. like we can feel aches and pains. And it's not to say that sometimes, and I notice this when I'm even I hold these offerings, but I still do it like, oh gosh, okay, the music, okay, I just want to make sure that I'm holding space, and I'm like, oh God, I'm in my head, get back in my heart, back in the heart, get back in the heart, get back in the heart. It's a brain. We have neurons in our head, in our heart, and in our gut. But we seem to give so much to like this, but like there's this, like our heart has intelligence and we have a gut instinct about things. But then there's like the lining all of that up and taking a moment for mindfulness and then listening and tuning in to that love and that information. Marianne Williamson talks about this. She's like, well, how can, because she used to do these lectures for Course in Miracles, and
that's right, yeah.
People would say, well, how do I know if it's the voice of God or if it's my ego? And she goes, well, that's really simple, because your ego sounds like Mick Jagger and God sounds more like, Michael Beckwith. Like, it's not, they're both you. Like both voices are you. It's just notice that the one that's loving, that is good at, like, it's just information, and it's more of a clean
and chill
and usually softer in voice. I wish it was louder, but it's like softer, unfortunately. Like we got to say, okay, you can hang out, ego, but you're gonna have to get in the back seat, because like I want to actually hear the real driver here, which is the heart.
I think that's a big piece you're touching on though there, because like saying that it's a whisper.
Yeah,
it's a lot of, and I think that are also what you were just touching on a second ago, that our society is so focused on all these other things that it's not, I mean, we have to somewhat be paying attention to the past and the future, because we're human beings and we're in society, and we have to be aware of these things. But I get, like you're saying, that that voice can be so loud that it just overpowers that innate intelligence that's trying to come through and trying to say, hey, there's an easier way. If you look over here, it's less painful. You can save yourself a lot of time
and you can save yourself a lot of money. Okay, you do it your way. Like, no, I know. Like, you want to laugh, tell God your plans. I think tell God your plans.
Byron Katie talks about that there's a lot of power in the I know. She's amazing. And that saying that, like, there's so much power in the I'm right and I know and this is the way that it is and they're wrong, and all of that. There's that when you get it, that we want to feel something, and if power is the way we start to feel something, that we sometimes default to that stress and you're saying cortisol and all that stuff, all of the adrenaline stuff that our body kind of defaults to in certain situations, because that was like a survival mechanism, that your body's trying to help you feel something and get you out of just the autopilot mode. So sometimes that's the path of least resistance, based on habits, right? Because habits, if you do something for decades, it's a habit. It's going to keep happening until you make a conscious, until you're able to kind of draw your attention to that through dance, through any type of therapy or any type of thing that helps you bring attention to those things, right?
Right. Mama Gina, she does courses, and she speaks to the number of keys on a piano. Like, they're all like representations of different various emotions. They're all meant to be played. Like, we have this spectrum, we have this experience, we have this richness, we have this variability of, like, I can go up here, now I can be down here, and now I can be joyful, and now I can be kind of ambivalent, and that's okay too. And part of the fun of this dance practice is, like, this is a sandbox. Like, what do you got? Like, what do you got? And if the path of least resistance is anger, let it out. Let it out, because, and I'm sure you may have very well already had podcasters or will have podcasters that can speak way more intelligently than I can about, like, how these emotions are actually stored in the cells. I know the book, The Body Keeps the Score, is one resource with really strong case studies, but it's meant to be felt and released. It's meant to be felt and released. And each of those emotions has wisdom. Like, oh, why am I so angry? Oh, probably because my values just got violated and I need to set a boundary. That's valid. That is valid, and that's actually in their highest good too. That you communicate for that. Sure. Like, that actually
honesty
doesn't work.
And transparency.
Honesty and transparency, but coming from compassion and love.
For sure.
Yeah.
And what you're just touching on, you're saying about like being able to measure this stuff. Are you familiar with Candace Pert? You ever heard of Candace Pert? So she deserves more, she deserves more, wish more people knew about her. But a lot of what NET and a lot of these people, she discovered I'm blanking, what are they called? The neuropeptides, but serotonin. So she discovered serotonin and the receptors. What are they called? Why can't I? Basically, there's receptors throughout your body for all the different chemicals that your body's creating. So basically that endorphins. Yeah, serotonin. Sorry, thank you. Endorphins. So she was the one that discovered the happy chemicals. So discovered endorphins, and that. Whoops, I meant to say she discovered the opiate receptor, which led to the discovery of endorphins. She didn't actually discover endorphins. Your body has these neuropeptides for all your emotions in your body, so that your emotions are actually a physiological thing. Because that's not a familiar thing for a lot of people. That emotions, we just think, right? They're in our head. That it's just like, oh, get out of your head. But it's actually a physical thing. That's why moving and like having the like crying or laughing or getting angry, when you actually feel that you actually create this chemical formula in your body that releases it, that actually lets it be released, because it's actually floating around in your body, and then we're holding on to these physiological. It's physiological. It's actually can be measured. You can see it, that it's actually there. It's not just this magical idea in our head. It's actually a physiological thing.
And it creates disease.
Because the longer you hold on to it, and the more you don't feel it, they eventually will find a way out, and it may not be a pretty way. Yeah. The longer you hold on to it.
Yeah. About 5 years ago, when I was living in California, I was diagnosed with a chronic bladder condition called interstitial cystitis. They say they don't know where it comes from, and they don't have a cure.
Okay.
They recommended bladder surgery. I was like, I'm in my 30s. Like, I don't want a bladder surgery? Yeah. There's got to be another way. There's got to be another way. Like, thank you. No, thank you. I'm going to keep looking. Yeah. And wouldn't you know that bladder inflammation is equated, Louise Hay speaks about this, it's equated to being pissed off and anger. And interstitial cystitis is just inflammation. It's inflammation of the wall of the bladder. And ladies probably know what I'm saying. It feels like you go to the restroom and you have to still go to the restroom no matter how many times you go to the restroom. It's awful. It's awful. And it's anger and rage that hasn't been given a voice and hasn't been given a platform to just be experienced and validated. Yeah. And validated. I don't know that anybody gets out of childhood without trauma. Like, I think we all experience trauma on some level. And sexual assault is one that's prominent among men and women. And that took a long time for me to heal and process and choose and accept and realize that doesn't actually mean anything about me. Like, I didn't deserve that. Nobody deserves that. And eventually even getting to a place where I can have compassion for that man and love him for how much stronger that made me. Like, that made me a fighter. That made me so strong. Probably a little erred on this true side of too masculine and too like it'll never happen again. But that's like not healthy either. So it's good to come back a little bit to compassion and love. It's like the pendulum, right? It's like, you're never going to do that again. Oh, doormat. No, we need to be a little bit in the middle here. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that dancing's the panacea, but it's been my saving grace, and I just want to make it available. And frankly, I want more dancing in our culture.
I agree.
In general, and it's growing. It's definitely growing, especially when people realize, oh, this isn't just to move. This is actually to experience catharsis and release.
So I'm curious from your perspective and just like kind of your experience. You were talking a little bit right in the beginning of our conversation about how you would have emotions come up and realize stuff during dance. Is that similar to the way you would have things come up during a meditation?
Yes.
Like what? So just a very similar like that?
Yes, exactly. So oftentimes the classes are built on like, okay, like just notice we give ourselves a minute to arrive in the class and get present. And it is a moving meditation. You know, you've kind of already spoken about the power of a moving meditation. But for me, I get more of those like insights and clarity and like things becoming like clear. I get much more of that when I'm moving than when I'm sitting on a cushion. I still meditate, and I still pray. You got to get unattached again, let go, you know, like, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to whom? I promise to listen. I'll keep listening. And then I ignore, and then I listen again. You know, it's just like, it's such a journey.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But for me, those insights they're just like, boom, insight, boom, insight. And sometimes, it might not be a mental thing. It might be a song. The lyrics in a particular song were exactly the message I just needed.
I love that.
Like the lyrics in that song.
That
was the answer. That was the answer that I've been asking for the past week. Like, thank you, David Bridges, artist. And sometimes it can be a picture, and sometimes it can be this loving experience that you had dancing with another on the floor, and it was really healing to connect and be seen. The dance floor is a microcosm for life, so whatever we're, you know, struggling with on the dance floor is usually showing up in life somewhere. And for me, I love dancing alone, and I have a real challenge dancing with other people. And like the vulnerability of being seen. That's good information, really good information. And now it's like we got to start like stretching outside of our comfort zone a little bit.
And I think that's a good way to go about anything, right? To allow yourself to do what feels comfortable and allow yourself to grow at a rate that's good for you. And I think that I talked about this before as well, that I think that for me, a lot of where I found myself getting stuck with stuff like this is other people's like testimonies of things, right? And other people's, my expectations of other people's experiences. And I think that was what stopped me from meditation for a long time. And hearing people having these transcendent meditations, and like half an hour they were able to like get into these crazy deep places. And it's like, well, I'll never get there. And I put off starting meditation for so long because I was like, oh, well, I can't actually do that. But this sounds like it sounds so accessible for anybody, right? It just seems like anybody who doesn't want to move around a little bit, right? And have access to just that energy, right?
Yeah, there is a vulnerability in showing up to these things.
For sure. Okay.
There's you know, and that's their journey. I have a couple of friends, and frankly, it took me a long time to get into conscious movement. I did rely on choreography and steps and ballroom dance and lead follow. That was like a safety net. I got this. Like, oh, we can just practice this step and you got this. But then it's like, oh, authentic movement, conscious movement from the inside out. It's a little uncomfortable.
Gotcha. Okay.
And, you know, I have a couple of friends who have said feels a little vulnerable.
Okay. No, okay. Yeah. No, thank you for clarifying that for me. Cause, part of this, so part of me being vulnerable is finally being on camera, because I haven't wanted to be on camera. I've always been, I mean, when I was
camera
when
it's just so sweet and innocent, that camera, and the beautiful being behind the camera.
That's great.
You can cut that out. I wasn't supposed to do that. You're not supposed to look at the camera.
It's fine. Yeah, that's my wife behind the camera helping us out here. But I think that was when I was younger. When I was 13, I got my dad's camcorder, and I would go out with my friends, and we'd film anything, and they'd hand the camera to him, and I'd talk into the camera, and it was always, I never had any problem being in front of the camera. And then at that time though, there was no internet, so there was kind of, I almost felt this ability to be vulnerable around my friends. I mean, not really being vulnerable, but not, I didn't have that self-conscious aspect of it, right? It was fine for me to be in front of a camera. Now I found that I need to start to be a little more vulnerable with the stuff that I'm talking about, and being in front of a camera and being more transparent with these types of things. Because I found that anytime I'm not being transparent, I'm not being authentic to myself, that it's only hurting me. Yeah. I think that I'm like, oh, then my image will stay the way it wants. But it's really just, it's become so heavy for me, and it's become such a burden for me to not be authentic like this, than to not have these conversations like I'm already having all the time anyway with people. I might as well start being out there that this is who I am, and not being afraid that this is who I am. And I think that that's I'm not saying that it hasn't been a little nerve-wracking, but at the same time, it feels so much better. It feels so much better.
That's the courage, though. Like, this isn't, I'm sure your audience is absolutely delightful. and this is nerve-wracking, right? Because it's like, oh, I'm going to share some very personal things that my own neighbor doesn't know. And I'm like, well, let's not do it on the porch, because I don't want my neighbor to hear that I have a bladder condition. But, like, so what? Like, even that. Yeah. Like, we could have done it on the porch. Now that I think about it, sorry. Like, but... so what? Everybody's dealing with a battle. Everybody's struggling with somebody. Everybody's feeling pain. And you wouldn't know it from the perfectly curated, social media. And I know, like, I'm to blame too. I put up happy pictures. But who wants to put a picture? Like, who puts pictures of people crying? Like, look, this is us having a really miserable conversation. Post. Probably wouldn't get many likes.
That's part of the problem, right?
But that's why I think what you're doing is so beautiful and important and powerful and timely, because if it's one person
and I
that
feel the same
feels
way.
Comfort and something resonates for them, if it's one person that hears comfort as a result of your message, then this is all worth it.
It's all 100%.
All worth
100%. And that's, I found myself, especially with doing video work, it can be very intimidating looking at the numbers of things, right? And you see like how big of a following and people having these incredible movements, but then I forget that not that long ago that I wasn't helping anybody with my videos. And now that's like, even just having 30 people that are so pumped about something, it's like, wait a second, that's right. I'm helping 30 people, or again, helping one person. That means something to that person. Is an incredible gift that maybe they saw something in a slightly different way. And that's what I'm hoping to, I think why long form conversations are so important, because it's just that perspective, right? Seeing it from a slightly different perspective that helps someone go, I never really thought about it that way. And you don't know what that leads to in that person's life. And you touched on something again earlier that I want to come back to, about how everyone is like, we're so nervous about what other people think about us, but so is everybody else, right? You're saying, I'm like, it's so funny. I saw
this article, this cartoon. The Awkward Yeti is amazing. If you don't follow them on Instagram, they're just so fantastic. It's a brain and the heart, always having these battles.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Really, it's such a funny cartoon. But there was this one cartoon of, okay, when we're like standing alone in the middle of a crowd, what do we think is going on around us? And we think everybody's looking at you. And the picture is everybody's just staring at Luke. What's he doing next? He's taking out his phone. And then like the next picture is what's actually happening, and everybody's looking at their cell phones. Like the whole cartoon, everybody's just like looking at their cell phones. It was so great.
That's amazing.
I'm like, yeah, everybody else is concerned about
Isn't it so powerful though? That it's insane though that we all have that dialogue though, right?
Yeah.
That we really think that, oh my God, like if my hair is in the right way, people are looking at me. That is my shirt the right shirt?
Oh my God, my hair is not perfect.
And like all these little things.
It's such a prison. It's a prison.
It is, and it's funny. It's funny how we're willing to compromise who we are for. Again, maybe nobody even notices, which is an even funnier situation that you go out, no one even notices anything, and you've compromised yourself for that. And that's why I think it's just so, again, it doesn't, if you need to take care of yourself to look good for you, right? If you feel confident and good in yourself in the way that you're, good. Take care of yourself for you. And what's funny is that naturally tends to be better anyway, right? That when you feel confident in your own persona, in your own skin, the way that you're confident being, that's more attractive anyway, right? To actually just be yourself and to actually shine your light to the best that you can.
Yeah.
I think that that's what the time we're living in right now, that we have two choices, right? With these platforms, like it's amazing that I'm able to just show up with microphones and a camera and be able to have a conversation like this. And again, because 10 years ago, it wasn't this easy to do this, And now we have this platform to be able to spread a message. It's just so much easier. And not gonna say easy, so much much more, we just have such a far reach right now. So many resources and such a reach right now that if you're speaking from your heart, you can reach so many people that need to hear that. And I think it's just a powerful thing.
Yeah. And
it's
even
a powerful time to be alive.
So you mentioned 30 people. Those 30 people are touching all these other people. There's this like ripple effect.
It's a measurable change for sure.
We will never know.
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
I think that's so powerful.
But this is a drop in the water of having conversations that are forwarding and evolving and heightening awareness around like, you're not supposed to be perfect. It's okay. Like, you're human. You're beautifully human. And by the way, be yourself, because it's so cool. I finally am embracing and rocking my weirdness. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm totally weird. I know I'm so weird. And I'm okay with that now. I used to be really ashamed of it.
Same. Yeah, I was always a weird kid, and like, why would you want to be normal, right? So much more fun being weird.
Oh, yeah. And we're given rewards and accolades for work hard and be the best, but it's just love.
I want to, a friend, I want to actually, someone I know, Helen Vonderheide, I want to shout her out. She does Akashic readings, and she does every month. She does like the guides message that comes through for everyone who watches on her channel. I'll put a link to it in here. Yeah. And she had something. I don't know if it was last month or the month, maybe a couple months ago. A message that came through was that there's no room for perfection right now. And it was, again, the truth bumps. That it's so important that we realize that you being your authentic self is so much more important than being perfect. And that what is perfect anyway? There is no what's perfect to you or what's perfect to me is different for every person. It's not actually, it's a construct. It's not real.
Tony Robbins said that perfectionism is actually setting such a low bar, because you're just like, you won't take the same risks, you won't take the same actions, you'll hold back in saying something that really needs to be said. You'll hold back on, okay, well, look, like, my dance offerings are still very young. I have maybe 10 people at most in my classes, but those 10 people, it's a very intimate offering, and that's perfect.
Yeah.
Just the way that it is. And if somebody said they were going to be there and they couldn't be there, it's still the perfect constellation of people who need to be there for that conversation, for that message, and for that journey. So it's a lot more of a relief.
Such a relief. And it I think it's so powerful. Like we were saying, is that this is something I've been reminding myself of, that everything is exactly as it should be. And we're exactly, like, right now this is where we are, and it's exactly where we should be.
It's exactly where we should be.
And I think that what you're reaching into, like, the only reason you would think that maybe 10 wasn't perfect is because we had some preconceived notion that there should be more in the first place. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you had, because at some point it was 0 people, right?
Which is so silly, because I'm comparing myself to Amara Pagano, who is the creator of the Path of Azul. She's the mother who birthed this amazing dance movement that's all around, like, accessing the heart. And she was a 5 Rhythms facilitator for several years before that. So why am I comparing myself to a master? Yeah.
It's just funny that the way that our mind tends to have to try to rationalize things, that I've just found more and more that even the things that when I think it's not the way that it should be, when I try to take a step back and realize that it's perfect the way that it is, it's only because I had some expectation or preconceived notion about that.
Right.
That if I had no notion about it, I'd be so excited about everything all the time. Right? That just any conversation or any meeting that you have with anyone is just, there's so much to be gained, and there's so much to take away from anything and everything. And I found that the more I can stop trying to be somewhere else and realize that I'm always where I need to be, because if I'm here, how could I be anywhere else? You know, that it's really just takes you out of the moment. And it's just, I'm hoping to try to just that we're all starting to learn that a little. I mean, again, speak for myself, that I'm trying to help people to learn that the best you can do is to just be here now. Yeah. Around us.
I just watched a whole documentary about Ram Dass and his life. Talk about somebody who's totally brilliant and humble at the same time.
He's fantastic.
And his story about going to India and being humbled. Deeply humbled, put on the ground, sobbing, humbled about like, wow.
Do you want to just share that real quick for people if they don't?
It's
just the quick abridged.
Ram Dass had a documentary, and it's through Uplift TV. Okay. And it's free. You can subscribe to Uplift TV and get access to all these amazing, uplifting, highly beautiful, highly conscious, spiritual types of, and scientific too, types of content and films. And some of them are short films, but this one was about, it was titled Fierce Grace, because Ram Dass is talking about how this other part of his life has been really now coming to terms with this new life after he had his stroke. Wow. Fierce. He did not know that was going to happen. And now the documentary is brilliant, and it shows his journey of physical therapy and now having to learn how to move this arm again. And okay, spirit.
And just so much wisdom. Okay,
spirit. Wow, I'm learning a lot from this. and it was really difficult for him. He shares really beautifully about it. His speech is much slower now.
It's just perspective. Again, just showing the power of perspective, and that life is what you make of it. That no matter what your circumstances are, that again, we can only speak for ourselves and what we've been through, but that there's so much love there for every single person, and that everyone has the ability to have peace, to come to some sort of peace in their life. And I think we need to wrap it up a little bit, but start to wrap it up. But talked about some pretty awesome things, and I just want to acknowledge you for just being vulnerable and being here and sharing your story, because it's just so helpful for what I'm trying to do. Your story is powerful, and I think that it's so many people I think have gone through so many parts of their life where they feel hopeless, they feel angry, they feel fed up with what's going on, and I want to continue to be able to share that there's always help, and there's always love you can always get help, and there's always someone. There's so many people there that are doing what you're doing is so powerful and important, like doing this dance work and helping people to access that part of themselves, because it's so important for people. We deserve, everyone, it's your right as a human being to have some access to that peace in your life. And I just wanted to acknowledge you for being here with me today, and it was awesome conversation. I'm so happy we got to sit down and talk.
Yeah, it's also everybody's right to know that they're a gift. Yeah. And that they have a gift for the world, and that by tuning in, plugging in, and following whatever path you may share in the process of this message, whatever path calls to you, trust it, explore it, be a curious researcher, compassionate to yourself, loving. Well, we don't always have to love ourselves. Sometimes liking yourself is okay. I'm loved by something way greater. I don't always love myself, but I like myself. I like myself. Yeah, flaws and foibles and all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Where can people find you?
EricaMarieWood.com.
Awesome.
The website is under construction as I'm now getting some videos, some dance video projects up on the website. Okay. So it'll be up and running soon. And The Path of Azul.
Awesome.
ThePathofAzul.com. I'm one of the teachers and facilitators for that practice. And Amara Pagano. I just want to give her credit. She is a stunning human being who is making it her mission in life to have people awaken heart intelligence through movement. So I just want to pay homage. to Amara as
Awesome.
well. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And this
you.
was a blast.
This was awesome.
We'll have to do this again sometime. This was great. No, this was a great conversation.
Yeah.
And thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Until next time.
Until next time.